is the Seahawkers podcast, episode 413. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me is my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
Hey, man. Just wanted to say I'm so sorry about your drive all the way to Seattle for whatever the hell that was that we all witnessed there. And I hope this is a little bit of catharsis for that wasted gas money at $4.75 a gallon or $5 a gallon that you threw out there.
Yeah, well, I guess the saving grace of it all is that, one, my mom paid for the gas, so that part of it.
Hey, all right,
yeah,
Glenda.
That part of it didn't hurt as much. Also, the cool part about being there, one, with it being opening weekend of the NFL season, there was a lot of other stuff going on, and being there for Bobby Wagner to come out of the tunnel to the loud roar of the crowd at Lumen Field, that I can at least come away with that memory of it and be good with what it took to get there.
Yeah, you bet. That was maybe the most positive moment of the day, was that incredible welcome that Bobby got. And it was so awesome, man. I can tell it's been special for him and for Pete and for all the players and all of that. And obviously special for the 12. So very cool, man. I thought that was a really awesome thing for the 12s to do, but a natural thing, of course.
And I don't know about you, but at halftime of this game against the Rams, when they go in 13-7, the fact that, yeah, okay, Jason Myers missed a field goal. It's 2023. I've come to accept that there's going to be those misses in the odd years now. But there was a blocked field goal. Sure, they didn't get any points. The Rams missed a field goal too, but it was 13-7 going into halftime. And you thought, okay, well, if they just put together another half just like the first half, then we're going to come away with a win and everything's going to be good. At halftime, there were things to be concerned about, but not to the point to where I felt hopeless like I did once the fourth quarter rolled around.
Yeah, it definitely got out of control there in the second half. And, I heard Pete talk about it in his press conference, all about how, well, I felt good. We were in the locker room. I needed to get the guys fired up better for the second half and have them more focused and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, I don't think that's what the problem was, man. It didn't look like an effort problem to me. It looked like a scheme problem in terms of not so much that the scheme is wrong, but the scheme hasn't been fully absorbed by the players. And there was some big whiffs in the secondary there. And then the pass rush was pretty blasé.
Yeah.
And that's really what did the Seahawks in the second half. When you can't get any pressure on Matt Stafford, man, it's over. He's a professional NFL quarterback. There's no other way to put it. And this is why I hated this as a week one matchup for the Seahawks, man. Like, you're going to get full health Stafford, and that's their biggest weapon. And we saw it on full display, and the Seahawks were helpless to do anything about it, despite playing pretty well against the run for most of the day. Unless you count the red zone, but we can get to that.
unless you do count the red zone, which it should count. But when you consider the rush attempts and the rushing yards for the Rams, 40 rushes, 92 yards, that part of it looks fine, right? Because it's the yards per carry average, and Cam Akers carrying the ball 22 times for only 29 yards. Yeah, that stat line looks awfully good. It's the red zone. It's the fact that you did have Matt Stafford just dealing, and the fact that Pete Carroll and Clint Hurtt still haven't found a way to solve the way that Sean McVay is able to scheme the Seahawks defensive backs. It's like every single year he finds ways to get guys open in the middle of the field to where Matt Stafford just can throw darts right down in between the hashes and have an open receiver every single time.
Well, the funny part is it's not like he finds a new way every single year.
No,
he does the
same way
thing every damn year. Like the passing over the middle and those 10-yard in-breaking routes in under, they slaughtered us with those. That was the difference in the game. And that's really where the third down numbers come into play, because they were able to stay on schedule with those bread and butter, easy passes that they knew that they would get time in and time out. And when I mentioned that they were struggling scheme-wise, you watch the secondary players, And on every one of those in-breaking routes, if it's zone, outside dudes are pointing at the dudes inside. It's not like they're pointing fingers after the play. They're pointing toward being like, I'm passing this off. And then they've got a layers concept going on. They got somebody behind the linebacker or the safety, whoever's down in the box there that's supposed to be defending that. And then they get high load and they have nowhere to go. And you're always wrong.
Yeah.
So instead of passing that off in zone, you got to I can't stand this underneath soft zone. Catfish, dude. Like, it drives me crazy. I want to ditch it. I hate zone coverage. I've always hated zone coverage. I'd rather get burned in man coverage every single time than sit there and be just hapless in zone coverage. And I hear Pete talk at his presser. Oh, well, the zone is so much easier for the guys and they're able to communicate better. Bullshit. Catfish. Dude, they're so confused when it's zone coverage underneath that you end up with a bunch of easy third down conversions, a bunch of 3rd and 2s that are set up by Puka Nacua having a Hall of Fame catfish day over the middle. Dude, that was the thing that got under my skin more than anything throughout the game. It was like, I know it's coming. You know it's coming in the stands. How many dudes around you, Brandon, in the stands were like, yeah, I'm probably going to throw over the middle now.
That's because
how many? Like every one of them.
Because it was obvious what the Rams were doing. They were, when they recognized that the Seahawks were playing zone, they would run the receivers in front of the zone players, and they'd look at the guys going, oh, well, I don't want to get beat by this dude crossing deep to the sideline, so I'm going to start following him to the sideline. And as soon as he would lean that way, Stafford would have the guy coming over the middle and hit that guy. So there was no way they just, and how the defense didn't expect that after you continue to do it over and over again. After you get beat by that, I don't know, half a dozen times and think, oh, hey, every time I start looking at the dude crossing in front of me, heading toward the sideline and thinking that the ball's going that way, it ends up going to my left or it ends up going to my right if I'm on the opposite side. How many times does it take? So is it a coaching problem or is it a player problem? Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, it feels a little column A, a little column B for sure. And it's so inherently frustrating because I've heard other coaches or other X's and O guys talk about it. And they're like, look, okay, you're in zone, but it's zone with man principles, right? So the guy crosses your zone, you stick with the freaking guy. And the problem was, it wasn't just zone coverage that they were getting hammered on underneath like that. It was in man too, because they were in man. They were always playing outside leverage because they're so terrified of being beat outside for the chunk play. You know what? I'd rather have that than get jellied all the way down the field for 12 plays, 15 plays, 8 plays, 9 plays, over and over and over again, to where the time of possession was literally doubled. It was just a smidgen under 40 minutes for the Rams, and it was 20 minutes and change for the Seahawks. Like, you can't win games that way. And the Rams had 17 first downs passing. 17. That's more than the Seahawks had all freaking day.
Well, you talked about the Rams being on schedule. One, they were getting them off schedule because those first and second down runs were going for 1 or 2 yards. So it was 3rd and long on multiple occasions. But it is that other idea of, and I'm okay if they want to, and you mentioned outside leverage. So that's when the corner lines up to the outside shoulder of the receiver because he's trying to funnel that receiver into the middle of the field rather than allowing him to get outside. If you play with inside leverage, then the receiver is more likely to release to the outside. And I think I would be more okay with that because just think about this. If you are at a bar playing darts, you're going to line up straight across from the dartboard and throw the darts. You're not going to try and throw it at the dartboard that is diagonal from you. That's not going to work. So it's easy for Matt Stafford to just drop back, look straight ahead, and throw darts.
For sure. And he sees the middle of the field well.
And it makes it really easy to see the middle of the field well when you don't have a freaking pass rush.
So I definitely want to get to that for sure, man, because that's such a huge deal throughout this game. But in terms of the corners and the way that they were playing, so you play with outside leverage and man all the time, and you're getting hosed inside. Okay, do we never make the adjustment to start playing some inside leverage? And then not only that, but like, let's say you shade more to the inside. Now you have the sideline as your extra defender as well. Whereas now you're just funneling them into space which is exactly what McVay wants. That's how he game plans things. And that's how he is Pete Carroll's freaking daddy year in and year out. And it is freaking maddening. I hate that team. I hate that happened on Monday night. And I think as much as we kill the secondary throughout this episode, it's the front seven, man. Like the lack of pass rush was easily far and away the most alarming thing that came out of this game when you consider how beat up, or not beat up, but just how many new guys or limited experience guys that the Rams have on the offensive line.
I was looking at the pressures for this game, and the Seahawks had, I think it was 7, because it matched the exact number of pressures that Jalen Carter had for the Eagles. You know, not to draw any correlation or comparison there, but when you think about that, that's a little frustrating.
It's super frustrating. And then one of the things that we kept saying in the Discord throughout the game is, okay, it's a Draymond time. Like, this is why we pay you the big bucks. It's time for you to step up and make a big play. And in the post-game show, you had texted us, you know, you being there at the game, being like, hey, man, he was doubled a lot. And so I really looked intently at that as I went back and watched the rewatch, because I hate myself and I love you guys. That's the only reason I would do that. But you weren't wrong, man. They were doubling the holy crap out of Draymond almost the entire game on passing situations. And you would think that when he draws that double, that somebody else would be able to wiggle free and get more pressure. But where was those, you know, Boye Mafe moves that we saw in the preseason? You know, Nwosu was, you know, he was good in the run game, and they both did great on the edge, setting the edge against the run. But in terms of pass rush, they were pretty much non-existent. Darrell Taylor gets ran around on a play. Like, you know, he's a traffic cone. That was embarrassing. That would be the thing if I'm a Seahawks fan. Well, being a Seahawks fan, looking back on this game, that I'm most concerned about. The offense, not worried. I think those things are going to buff out. The pass defense as a whole, I think the secondary, that will buff out. It's going to get better with Witherspoon coming in, and you know, the adjustments that they will make. And as the season goes on, the communication gets better. But, you know, pass rush is kind of just a physical, either you got it or you don't. And boy, it looked poor.
I do feel like when you say that you're not worried about the offense, we have to get a little bit more specific, because there are parts of the offense.
Season long.
Season long. One of the things I was not suspecting is coming out of week 1 and not knowing who our 2 tackles are going to be come week 2. We don't know who's starting at tackle in week 2 against the Detroit Lions. And if it goes like how it did in the second half, between Curran and Forsyth, that was a big part of why I think Geno was rushing. Why I don't know why they didn't shift more toward the run, because when they did run the ball with Kenneth Walker in the first half, I was thinking, okay, here we go. This is what they need to do against this Rams team, because one, it's working. They're not stopping Ken Walker until the Seahawks stopped him by pulling him off the field and putting in Zach Charbonnet and DJ Dallas.
One of the coolest things about this game, one of the positives, the bright spots, was watching the tight ends throughout this game, especially early, when they were putting the 2 guys in the backfield or on one end of the line, and then either pulling them like they were guards and that sort of thing, or releasing them out in front of the back and running a power sweep. Dude, that was awesome. That was awesome football. Yes, more, please. Sign me up for all of that. I loved watching that. That was cool. We didn't get that big Bobo moment. Geno missed him on the flea flicker.
Yeah.
But one thing that Bobo did well throughout the game is he run blocked like hell, man. He did a great job in that aspect of his game. That was impressive. But yeah, I don't know that you can really get into the run game, you know, in the second half if you don't convert on third down. And they had a lot of opportunities on the first drive or 2 in the second half where DK misses a slant. JSN misses a kind of a back shoulder throw right at the sticks to convert a third down. I thought he caught everything. That's what I was told. Didn't catch that. So the lack of converting on third down on offense, especially in the second half, was an absolute killer when you knew the defense was in full on struggle mode.
I think I would have been more okay, though, if they were running the ball that effectively, to just continue to hammer the rock and do that when they were struggling. I've seen Pete Carroll. He's gone and run the offense where they do 3 straight runs on first, second, and third down. And if it's working, continue it. It wasn't working with trying to go to the pass, especially when you had injured tackles and Aaron Donald right in front of you. I was surprised that they didn't do more of that or try to do more of that, considering the situation they were in with their tackles.
That's the story of the game, is it not? The injuries to both the tackles. Once they were gone, it was over. It was absolutely over. Curhan was a disaster in pass pro, an absolute disaster. And, Forsythe, he was a little better, but, he's not going to be saving the day either. And then you see the Seahawks. Obviously, they believe that at least one of the tackles isn't going to play this next week against the Lions, because they go out and they bring in 45,000-year-old Jason Peters to come and play tackle. I imagine that must be
41. He's still a younger man than us
by a skosh. Even if I had the athleticism, my youth to play football was gone, 10 years ago at like 34. Like, there's no way I'm 41. But I mean, he's a special human in terms of the type of athlete he is. So he's got to be an upgrade over Forsythe or Curran. And my guess is they're more concerned about Cross, just because those toe things tend to take a long time.
I was surprised when on Wednesday that it was Abe Lucas who was moved to injured reserve first, because he's going to be out now for 4 games. It's not 4 weeks, it's 4 games. So it's going to end up being the game after the bye week that he's going to have to sit out too. And when they talked about his knee, they were saying, well, it wasn't an injury, it was a flare-up, which also kind of concerned me with regard to Lucas, and that this is maybe just a condition that he deals with. And now to know that he's the one going to IR Cross, I would have expected he would be the one to go to IR, because like you said, toe things are a problem. I remember growing up watching Deion Sanders and thinking as a kid when they were explaining how Sanders was having turf toe. I'm like, well, turf toe, big whoop, like get out there and run on your turf toe.
Strap it up, buddy.
Yeah, it's a toe. Like, how bad can it hurt? But when you think about, and Deion was just, a quick guy and had to, change directions quickly. Well, if you think about offensive line, they also have to move quickly. But in addition to moving their own 300-pound bodies, they're pushing against other 300-pound bodies that are trying to move against them. And so to move in those quick, short areas, and then also with the weight and leverage that they put on their feet, that's a massive amount of pressure that they're putting on their feet on every single play. And to have an injured toe, a sprained toe in Cross's case, I don't see how he can be as effective. Maybe they can find a way to shoot it up and make it numb, but still, that's where you get all your balance from is on your big toes.
Oh, for sure, man. I have definitely sprained my big toe before and then gone to work at the mill where you're monkeying around, all this equipment, and it's a human jungle gym for adults with sharp thingies, and like trying to do that on a bum toe. I mean, I'm not even trying to block another 300-pound mammoth of a freak human. I couldn't hardly do it. So that concerns me. I hadn't heard the Abe Lucas news, him going to IR. That's more than concerning. That's devastating, because I'll tell you what, when Pete was talking in his presser and he's like, it's an old knee. It's an old knee problem.
Yeah.
I was like, don't say that.
Right.
That's the last thing in the world I want to hear. All I'm having is Jesse Williams flashbacks,
And maybe that's part of the reason why a guy as talented as he is ends up falling late in the 3rd round. And that's concerning to me.
4 games without Lucas that's a big freaking deal, man. I mean, that could easily equate to 2 losses, with one of them already having occurred.
So if Peters can get right and be, because Pete was saying on Wednesday, we might need him sooner than later. He's on the practice squad right now, but he could get called up. Maybe they're able to get by with Cross for 1 week as is. They're trying to manage it that way and have him out there for 1 week before putting him on the shelf, and maybe Peters is ready. I think the best option with both Cross and Lucas likely out would be having Peters at left tackle and then moving Forsythe over to the right side. When we saw him in preseason, I thought he looked a little bit better on the right side, and that would leave Curran as a secondary backup or potential backup guard as well. But then I also, gosh, you have to worry about the fact that Peters, he was dealing with injuries with the Cowboys all last year, and he's 41.
I mean, if you just need 4 games out of the guy, I think that's something that is doable for somebody of that age. I mean, we're watching Dwayne Brown give it a go with the Jets right now. And I mean, technically he did give up the pressure that ended Aaron Rodgers' season. Now, I'm not sure, that's not really his fault. It was a play where Aaron held the ball.
It's not all on Dwayne, but it's part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, but at least as Seahawks fans, we can say we didn't have the worst weekend in the entire NFL, Brandon. I mean, if you're part of the New York fan bases, you had the worst weekend of the entire NFL, whether you're a Jets fan or a Giants fan. That was an even uglier beatdown that the Giants took. And then the Aaron Rodgers news, man, that's just a bummer. Like, that bums me out. I was looking forward to watching what the Jets did with Aaron Rodgers. Watching Rich Eisen's reaction was priceless. But let's not get too much schadenfreude out of everybody else's problems over the weekend, because we have plenty of our own, man.
We do. But, you bring up the Jets, and it did make me think. Aaron Rodgers obviously out for the season, but if you're just talking about a 4-game issue like you have with Lucas and maybe Cross, would you rather be going without your 2 tackles for 4 weeks or without your starting quarterback for 4 weeks in terms of impactful positions?
I think if you're going without your starting tackles for 4 weeks, there's probably a pretty good chance you're going to end up going without your starting quarterback for 4 weeks at some point too.
That's why I don't like the situation that the Seahawks find themselves in, especially going into a game against the Detroit Lions, who have one of the top pass rushers. We go from Aaron Donald to now Aiden Hutchinson, one guy at nearing the peak of his career to one guy who's just getting started, and looked awfully good last week against the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Lions defense is for real, man. And they held the Chiefs to a low scoring affair, really, for Chiefs standards, of course. But some of that too was Kadarius Toney, like, just crapping the bed all game. I mean, that didn't help at all with the way the Chiefs were playing that particular week. But the Lions are legit. They are real. And defensively speaking, their pass rush, they were getting pressure on Mahomes quite a bit. Now, they did end up with 0 sacks at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they were getting home. Now, can the Seahawks keep it to just that and keep Geno relatively clean? Because if you can do that, then we have a shot. If you can't at this point, man, like, I can't trust this defense until I see it. We saw it for like a 4-week stretch last year. And then I was like, yeah, okay, I'll buy in. Nope, it's up to 6 weeks now. I got to see it for 6 weeks before I believe it again, because I've seen too many years of what we just saw against the Rams. And shoot, Brandon, it was close. It was in the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth. The Rams go on a drive. It is 17-14. It's a 3-point ball game.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks stop them on 3rd and 11 down by the goal line. And Trey Brown gets called for illegal hands on a play that happens away from the play. And to me, that was the moment where I went, oh, it's over. It's absolutely over.
There were a couple different moments in terms of penalties in this game. That was one of them. Obviously, the one that I think is getting the most conversation is DK Metcalf and the sidelines and getting an unsportsmanlike conduct. But you also had Quandre Diggs not too long after that, also taking a 15-yard penalty for, I didn't quite see the hit, but I guess it was late.
Look, the game was out of control. You weren't winning the game. I honestly don't mind the penalty aspect of it. What I do mind is what DK did to Kilo Weatherspoon. That's catfish. Bush League. That's Bush League. That is absolute garbage. I don't want to see that associated with the team that I love and follow. Like, it's a brotherhood out there. He talks about it all the time. And even against the players that you don't like, even the Ramseys of the world, or, Witherspoon in this case, you can't do that. There was no reason to do that other than you were just being cheap and pissy. And don't cheer for that stuff. If you're a 12, don't do it. That's classless. He needs to get his freaking poop in a group, man. That is 1,000% unacceptable. And I don't know that I was totally assured by Pete Carroll's answers on Brock and Salk.
I don't know if anybody that I know who was cheering for it. It made me wonder, though, if that was DK payback for whether it was something that Akello was saying during the game, or if it went back to when Akello lined up from him in practice. Is there bad blood from when they were teammates? It made me wonder that.
Even if there is, man, can't be doing that. Can't be doing that. That's just poor form, man. That was gross to me. But that's when you knew the unraveling was in full effect and that it was just over.
The gross thing to me was after the game, hearing from multiple people saying that they felt that like the Rams wanted it more. I didn't like hearing that very much.
Okay. Who are all these people? Sports psychologists or something? Like,
I don't want to hear players on the team recognizing that they wanted it less, because that's essentially what they're saying.
I always felt like that's relatively lazy to be like, oh, that's why they couldn't get it done. It didn't look like an effort problem out there, or a lack of being fired up or care or anything like that. It was execution, and they got executed.
Well, they do have the opportunity now to bounce back against the Lions. It's going to be a little bit tough. The Lions, you mentioned, they had a game against the Chiefs where they ended up beating the defending champions on the opening week of the season. And that has the opportunity to get a team like that excited and fired up for their season, because shoot, fans were already excited about the season. You saw them traveling down to Kansas City. You just felt the energy even from the media coming out of this game, talking about how, because it solidified in the minds of many of our the media people that we listen to. They've talked about all offseason. Oh, got to watch out for the Lions because Dan Campbell, he bites kneecaps, and they were just a game out of the playoffs last year. So watch out for the Detroit Lions. They could be a factor in the division. And then for them to get a 1-point victory against the Chiefs, it's like everybody's thoughts on the Lions are suddenly solidified, and they're the next playoff team now. Typical
week one stuff. I mean, we get mollywomped at home for no good reason other than a lack of preparation. And, it's the end of the world. This team will never make the playoffs. They're awful. It's over.
Time for Pete Carroll to go. Yeah.
Yeah. The Lions, they beat the Chiefs and they're going to the Super Bowl. So let us remember, I remember the Bills going into Foxborough with Drew Bledsoe at quarterback and stomping the living crap out of the Patriots, 50-0 or whatever it was. It was an absolute just blowout. And season looked a lot different than that one game. It's one game. And that's one thing we got to remember about that. And so now you got a fresh week against Detroit in Detroit. And I think the number one area that they're going to have to focus on is situational football, third freaking down, and red zone. Because, they had some red zone opportunities and settled for field goals, and we can't be doing that.
And they're facing a team that has a better pair of running backs than the Rams do.
Yeah, man.
You got Jahmyr Gibbs, who is a first-round pick. You got Montgomery, who, he's played with several different teams, but he's good. And he took the majority of the carries against the Chiefs last week.
He did. I've always liked David Montgomery. I think he's a heck of a back. And you pair that with the explosiveness that Gibbs brings. I think he averaged 6 yards a carry in the last game.
And then had 2 catches out of the backfield for almost 20 yards.
Yeah, what a terrible first-round pick, those idiots.
I feel better about their first-round running backs that were taken than our second-round running back that was taken. But that I have not. It's one game. I haven't given up on Charbonnet, but I'm not feeling great about it.
Well, neither of us love the Charbonnet pick, just in terms of the player, not so much the position on draft day. We both have had our reservations, and there hasn't been a lot to prove otherwise to this point. So, yeah, I'd like to see him get going, and the Seahawks are going to need to do it. They've got to get the run game working with a little more consistency. And I know they ran it to the inside a bit against the Rams early, but it wasn't for a lot of success. I mean, really, again, all the success for K9 came outside. And so whether that's, just pounding the rock outside and calling it good, or, figuring out a way to mix in the, inside zone runs. And there was a draw play that was nice. I would like to see a little more of that maybe. And yeah, maybe they can be on schedule a little bit more and convert more third downs, because 2 of 9 last week, that ain't going to cut it, man.
No. And there's one area that I have hope in this game against the Lions is that I felt like the Chiefs would have been able to continue driving so many more, converting so many more third downs if their receivers could just catch the football. It's not like Mahomes was throwing into real tight windows and the guys were getting pass breakups. No, he was throwing the football to where receivers would normally be able to catch it. And Kadarius Toney, or, maybe Sky Moore not being tall enough for a couple throws, they should have been able to convert more against the Lions defense. So yes, there are aspects of this Lions defense that I would be concerned about, but I also have kind of a wait and see approach. Like, let's see if the Lions can handle the Seahawks receivers when they can actually catch the ball in space.
Yeah, if they actually get space. I mean, they went up against a secondary this last week with a bunch of late round draft picks and journeymen. And I expected the receivers to dominate. I thought we'd see a lot more out of JSN for sure.
But like the DK Metcalf touchdown where he put the moves on that corner and it breaks it to the outside, and he had all the room for Geno Smith to just lob the pass in there and score that touchdown. That was all DK just juking the heck out of that defensive back.
That was a work of art out of DK on that one, and it was impressive. And then Tyler going out there and doing Tyler things. I mean, he definitely had a lot of tough catches that really helped move the sticks early on, and he took the big shot in the game. And after the tackles have gone down and all that, you're like, holy cow, not Tyler too. And then Nwosu was down for a half second, and your heart's in your throat, and just Mafe a tough week overall.
A knee issue, I think.
Yeah. So that matchup of the receivers against the Lions secondary is paramount. I mean, the strength of this team has to be the passing offense with Geno and those receivers. That's where the long and short of it is. So it's live or die by that right now.
The fortunate part is the last 2 matchups between the Lions and Seahawks, they've put up 40 and 50 points. This defense for the Lions has changed over those last couple of years, but there's some history there, so maybe there's some confidence there for Geno.
Here's my biggest worry about this week in terms of people talking about motivation and stuff. Don't think that the Lions forgot that the Seahawks basically, took their chance away by winning in week 17 to go to the playoffs. Now, the Lions did us a solid, right, by winning their game against Green Bay. But I think there's probably a little bit of revenge that's lurking in there. And, you got somebody in Jared Goff who, if you give him time, he can slice and dice you. And they really did target the middle of the field a lot against the Chiefs as well. So they're going to have to figure that out quick, fast, and in a hurry, man.
Between targeting the middle of the field, and he doesn't throw downfield a lot. The final drive, I think he picked up a 30-yard pass to help get him down the field and get him in the red zone for the go-ahead touchdown. But it's not like you're worrying consistently about Goff beating you deep.
It's in his ability, but it shouldn't be the thing that you focus on. But then again, I mean, that's what seems to be Pete Carroll's thing, is he's terrified of the explosives and then gets killed by a death of 1,000 cuts underneath. And right. That's fine if you can be like other teams and you can get those third down stops and get off the field in 3 to 6 plays. But man, they start piling up more and more after that. And you end up like you did last week with 9 total possessions, Brandon, 9 for the offense. The average is 11, 11 to 12. They ended up with 9 possessions. You don't have a lot of room for error there.
9 possessions, and that came in addition to having a blocked field goal.
Yeah. And the thing is Rams only had 9 possessions as well, but when they possessed the ball, they kept it. I mean, 40 minutes to 20.
And that's one thing you have to worry about this Detroit Lions team. They showed on that second possession of their season against the Chiefs they're not going to punt on their own 20-yard line. No, they had 2 yards to go. They're going to fake the punt and pick up the 2 yards. And then they drove down for the first touchdown of the game. And for them to do that in the first game of the season on the second possession, now everybody's going to be watching for it, but I don't think that they care.
No, I don't think Dan Campbell has a lot of cares to spare. That's for sure. When it comes to everybody else and their expectations, and they are an aggressive team and they make no apologies about that. And it's going to be a heck of a game. Now, one thing about the Lions last week is they were only 33% on third down as an offense.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were lighting it up. That would give me a tiny bit of hope that maybe the Seahawks could be a little better on third against this particular team than they were last week.
There is some hope there, especially with Devin Witherspoon practicing this week. It sounds like he may be a go because he was, I believe, a full participant in practice on Wednesday. Jamal Adams was out there as a limited participant in practice. Maybe we don't see him quite yet, but the more players that they can get in the secondary, we saw Trey Brown and Mike Jackson swap some snaps. We saw Kobe Bryant play almost the entire game at nickel. If Witherspoon is out there and able to sub in then for Bryant, I'm okay with the combination of Brown or Jackson. However, they need to make that work to have 3 defensive backs. Getting Kobe off the field, because in this game against Amon-Ra St. Brown, against Josh Reynolds, they have dudes, and I would be concerned if Kobe's going to be out there for 60+% of the plays.
Yeah. And the tight end as well. And they're going to need Witherspoon in this game. I've seen everything I ever need to see when it comes to Kobe Bryant playing slot corner. I'm good. I'm over it. That is not his position. It's not what he's going to excel at. He's always a step behind. He's a nice tackler. And then and he punches the ball out every now and then, but in coverage, he's a complete liability in the slot. I can't stand watching him, man.
And the Rams took advantage of that. So I would assume that the Lions would take advantage of that too. It's just that we need to see some Witherspoon, and I would have a whole lot more confidence in this defense than if the secondary, maybe I'm still not sure of Julian Love based on what we saw through 1 week of the season, but he is new to the defense. So I'm willing to let that slide a little bit.
Let me ask you, out of the Julian Love stuff that you saw, what is it that concerned you? Because I saw it a certain way, and it seemed like a lot of the folks in the Discord were kind of seeing it a different way. So I'm curious what you were looking at.
I saw at least a couple plays where he was out in coverage and not even close to the dude. So maybe it wasn't his assignment that he gave up when you went back and rewatched it, but there was enough to where it was him closest to the ball when the guy was catching it, and it was not particularly close. Yeah.
So with the Julian Love stuff, like I found it interesting because he had a lot of good pass coverage reps as well throughout all that. And, a lot of people didn't seem to think so. And then a lot of the things that were completed on him where you say it wasn't close, it was because they had him playing so far off the ball and off the receivers that he had to come up and just keep everything underneath of him. Like, I don't care if you're Troy Polamalu, you're not getting to all that, or Ed Reed. Like, you're not getting to those players in the position that he was in. So had a couple nice tackles as well. Had a nice PBU down the sideline on a play. I was fine with Julian Love. I didn't think that he was the crux of the problem.
Oh, no. I wouldn't put him in. I don't know enough about him yet to say one way or the other whether I'm comfortable with Julian Love on defense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fair, man. I mean, he is new. Like I said, we're getting used to all these guys and all these things. So, yeah.
I am curious in terms of PFF grades sometimes, just to see what they think they saw. And with Julian Love, he got
like a 33 or something. Yeah.
He got graded highly in run defense with a 76, tackling grade 73. Yeah. 38.5 in coverage, which is above Kobe Bryant. So that matches up with my eye test.
No, that's true. And there was a lot of those Love on the outside, pointing to the interior guy as the dude's running away from him, in thinking that he's going to get help. And, whether that's him playing poorly or the scheme or just a matter of a combination of the two, I'm not sure. But, I mean, we'll see. I'm not out on Julian Love yet. I wasn't quite as harsh on him as some other guys. Like Trey Brown, when he got beat on the pick play, sometimes you get picked. It happens. Like that. Do you want that to happen? No. But I wasn't killing him so much on that. It was a lot of the other plays where you're just like, gosh, man, like you're step and a half behind. I mean, that's wide ass NFL open.
Yep. And it's not going to get any easier in terms of the receiving talent this week. So it's going to continue to be a concern. It's going to go down to the pass rush again. And this Detroit Lions offensive line, I feel, is a whole lot better than the LA Rams offensive line. And so that's going to make things awfully tough too, especially when I hear Pete Carroll talking about it after the game. Oh, well, we had those guys up front playing straight up, and maybe if we just shade to one side or the other, then we can at least make them feel the pass rush a little bit more. Really? That's all that you think needs to happen, is that they line up more in the gap than straight up against the dude in front of them, and that's going to make the quarterback feel like there's more pressure? Like, how about getting actual pressure?
I mean, if that works, then great. But man, like, can we have some more stunts? Can we have some more blitzes? Can we try to speed up the quarterback's clock just a little bit? Again, Jared Goff is much like Matt Stafford in the sense that if he gets comfortable, he'll tear your ass up.
Yeah, we saw it over and over again in that same Rams offense.
And we saw it last year in Detroit. He played pretty darn well. He played Geno good.
Yeah, they put up 45 points against the Seahawks defense last year. It took Geno Smith putting 48 points on the board just to make sure that we got the win.
Right? Yeah.
So
it's going to be an interesting matchup on the road. Maybe that'll help, cloud out some of the noise and get them focused. And they were almost better on the road last year than they were at home. They kind of have been the last couple of years, really. So maybe it's just the elixir that they need. But I have a feeling home opener for the Detroit Lions, man, that play, what is it? It's not the Silver Dome no more. It's Ford Field, right? It's going to be rocking.
Lions fans are going to be fired up. You talk about the road games. Seahawks are 22-9 in their last 31 10 a.m. kickoffs, and they've won 14 of the last 17 early kickoffs since 2018. So those stats are pretty good. And plus, I was also looking at their bounce back games following a loss. They are second in the league since 2012 with almost a 700 winning percentage following a loss.
Yeah, you don't often see the Seahawks go on a losing streak, that's for sure. But look, even if they fall 0-2 in Detroit this week, I'm not hitting the panic button. It's going to be, I need to see 8 games before I feel real comfortable about how I'm feeling about everything. But that week 1 performance, man, the taste is dirty.
Oh, I don't feel any kind of way against fans who are frustrated after week 1, because that was a really frustrating game to watch, to be in the lead going into halftime and then to have that kind of performance in the second half, and then also to be frustrated with the injuries, be frustrated just because it's the Rams, because it's opening weekend. Yeah, coming out of that game, I think a lot of 12s are frustrated, and rightfully so, in terms of just, you set certain expectations, and then when they're that far off after 1 week, yeah, it's frustrating.
It's frustrating. I felt the pain as well. I mean, I wanted to break something. I didn't. I think I'm growing up a little bit finally. Maybe I'll just take DK till he's 44 like me to finally get his shit under control. But yeah.
Just keep telling yourself that you're going to grow up, and eventually you do.
Yeah. And one day you become a big boy, and I'm still looking forward to that day. So hopefully the Seahawks get on their big boy pants this week here in Detroit. And I'm looking forward to it, even though we came out of that frustrating game. It'd be really great to get the win and just get a different taste in your mouth and just kind of get the season rolling.
I would like the win for the fact that, like you said, it's overreaction week going into the second week of the season. the 49ers put up 40 points on the Steelers. Oh, they're the greatest Super Bowl team. The Giants lose by 4 to the Cowboys. Dan Quinn's going to be the next Vince Lombardi because he's coaching the heck out of that Cowboys defense. And it's just all the storylines that come out of week 1.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is with the Lions, they win by 1 point and are the darlings of week 1 somehow. And it's fun. They beat up on not really beat up, but they squeak out a win. And I just felt like post game, everyone was treating it as the Lions beating up on the Chiefs rather than feeling, to me, like the Chiefs gave one away. And I don't know if it's because you and I actually picked that one game last week. And so I went with the Chiefs and so it was them letting me down with my pick that I felt like the Chiefs gave it away. But that's how I felt.
Oh, for sure. And I think everybody can agree that wasn't a dominant win by the Lions there in Arrowhead. Now, did they have to play clean enough to keep themselves close to take advantage of all of those Chiefs mistakes? You bet. And you can't take that away from them at all. But in terms of them being dominant and just they're ready to rock and they're one of the top 2 teams in the league or something like that, I didn't see that type of performance. So let's see them come down to earth a little bit. Plus, they're going to be feeling themselves a little bit. So you got to learn how to deal with success. And that's not something that they've had much of there in Detroit.
I kind of like the situation that these 2 teams find themselves in, with the Seahawks feeling like they still have something to prove, especially after last week. And maybe Detroit having a week to listen to the media and talk them up, and with it being their game in front of their fans. But like you said, I don't expect a letdown game. The Lions are favored by 5.5 points, which turns out was what the Seahawks were favored at in their home opener too. But that Dan Campbell's going to have that team ready. And like you said, with the history of this team being the ones that essentially bounced them from the playoffs because they got the win before they played the Packers, I think they're going to have something to play for, and they're going to have to overcome it.
Looking forward to it, man. That's about all I got on the Lions, I think.
Me too. Let's get to the second half of the show. As we get into the second half of the show, this is typically where we check in on our rivals, but I feel like I mentioned before the break, the hype around the Niners is overwhelming, and we saw what happened to the Rams, and that was underwhelming to me. The Arizona Cardinals, though, that was maybe even a bit of a surprise, even though they lost, but they lost close.
I mean, I guess against another bad team. I'm not a big Commanders believer. I'm definitely not a Sam Howell believer. So that was interesting to see them play it close, but at least they lost, and we're tied at last in division with them. But watching Purdy and the Niners just mollywomp the Steelers was really tough, and that maybe is why a lot of Seahawks fans are so frustrated with this game, is seeing the 49ers come out and look the way that they did, and then to see us look the way that we did. It's concerning. And, Brock Purdy, at least in one game for his sophomore season, it looked like he's still legit. Like, yeah, it's not a fluke.
It's not how you start. It's how you finish, though. So go ahead and get out to a great start, Niners. And it's concerning, especially since that's the team that you're hoping to beat. But it is only week 2.
Yeah, it is only week 2. I don't even want to talk about the stupid Niners today, man. I don't. Catfish those guys, and still catfish the Rams. God, I hate those catfish. Is so gosh.
The good news. The good news about this, though, Adam. One of those two teams is losing this coming weekend.
Oh, yeah? Is it Rams-Niners this weekend?
Rams-Niners this weekend, so one of them has to lose.
Right.
Or a tie. That would be fine, too, because ties are gross, and that way both fan bases could feel a little bit gross.
Yeah, that'd be fine. I mean, I'm still going to go back to the well of Meteor. Like, I'm still rooting for that. That wouldn't be terrible.
Yeah, I don't know what would feel better in terms of which team winning, because whoever wins is going to be 2-0.
I'd feel better if the Rams won.
Would you? Okay.
I would, because that would make me feel like that, they got us week one where we weren't maybe as prepared as we wanted to be going in, and ended up getting beat. Whereas if the Niners just, kick the crap out of the Rams, and it's like, oh my gosh, like the divide seems larger than ever.
Are we that far behind? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Giants and Cardinals face off this weekend. That's the other NFC West matchup.
Who? The Giants are who I thought they were, man. No doubt.
So to recap, screw all of the other teams in the NFC West, who we're really happy about seeing. It's our members of the flock. They went to getintheflock.com. They help support the show. We've got our executive producers, DCH, Rebecca Christensen, JC Schilling, and Brian Shaw. He's back.
He's back. Hey, it hasn't been the same without Brian there for a minute, but it's awesome having him back week one, even under the circumstances, man. Missed you, buddy.
Brian Shaw came in with a $100 donation via Zelle. And I don't know if it had more in the note, Brian. It just says slipped like our ... So I get to fill in the blank.
I'm going to blame AutoPay.
So next time, Brian, if you want to send in a message, hopefully we'll be able to see you coming up here in the game against the Carolina Panthers, because all the other executive producers are going to be there. Although I haven't heard. Oh, JC's over in Germany, so JC's not going to be there. But yes, it's going to be.
That's an excuse, JC. Come on,
get over here, JC. Yeah. It's going to be a good time. I'm already looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Especially with seeing Bryce Young looking like Bryce Young so far.
Especially after my wife was asking me if I could remember the last time that I went to Seattle and saw our team win. It's comments like that make me say, I'm just going to keep going to one then until they do get the win, and to prove that it's not me.
Unintended consequences for the misses there, man. Like, don't poke the bear like that.
Don't tell me this is a me problem. I'll find out.
Yeah.
Can't be a me problem. They win when I go on the road.
That's exactly right. And our track record before that has been pretty good too. So, no, I don't feel like blaming you either.
Oh, well, thank you. On my trip out, I was going to stop at Guaranteed Barbecue, the food trailer in Kellogg, Idaho. I was going to try and get the 12% Flockers discount, but Garen was catering a wedding. His food is so good that he had to cater a wedding and could not tend to my needs on the trip out.
Yeah, he should have really cleared that with you. I can't believe he didn't. How dare he go out and, do business? That's terrible.
Although he did offer to let me come by the house to pick up a plate, but that seemed a little bit excessive. I did not take him up on that offer. I know he was sincere about it, and he would have done it too, because Garen's a great guy.
He's a great dude, and you wouldn't have been disappointed. It's a beautiful area there where he's at, so it might have been worth the little jog off the interstate there, but yeah, man. So are you telling me there's no new little flockers this week?
No, None? There are. Yeah. Well, we got Brian Shaw, who's back in, like I mentioned. We got John Olson, who came in at 12:12. Welcome to the flock to John.
Heck yeah, John. Man, nice to have you, bud. Looking forward to you in the Discord and everything.
We've got Ken Hidsick, who I hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, but or Heidsik, who came in at $60 annually, $5 a month. Welcome to the flock to Ken.
That's awesome, man. Appreciate you, Ken. And Brandon got your name wrong, then you get an automatic win in the Pick'em leagues this week.
It's true. Weston in at
pass Evie though. That's got to pass the Evie test.
We got to run it by the executive Pick'em league overlord Evie.
Yes,
but yes, that's a good thought to have. Yep. Weston also came in at $36 for the year. So welcome to the flock to Weston.
Dude, appreciate that, man. Especially after that rough loss, or maybe it was just before, but either way, man, helps out a lot.
We also got a raise from Poops Loomis, who edited their pledge to $60 for the year. So thank you to Poops.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah. Well, we must be doing something right then. Jeez Louise. Appreciate that, bud.
It was Thanks a good week to kick off the season, even though it wasn't a good week for our Seahawks.
Well, we appreciate all of y'all because we operate off the value for value model, man. Like, we provide some value to you, man. If you can kick something back, it's super appreciated. And, even if you can't man, do the like thing, the subscribe. I know it's boring. I know it's annoying, but please just do it if you're on YouTube. If you're doing this on the audio side, hit subscribe on your podcast app. Makes a big difference for us. And just thank you guys a ton.
Tell a friend who's a Seahawks fan. Every little bit helps. One guy who has been there with us since the beginning, John Davison, writes in, says, "Hi, fellas. Well, that crapped up and smacked me right in the mouth, or balls if you prefer. Halftime came, and I was happy and convinced we would just pull away in the second half. Arizona and Rams are catfish, and San Fran are not the team everyone's talking about. I was telling Barry, so we would win the division and go fairly deep into the playoffs. I got a WhatsApp later asking me if I had been taking my medication, and he has a point. So now to Detroit, who would just lay down and let the Chiefs trample all over them. Yeah, right. What a bloody crazy week. Even crazier than a crazy first week. Things can only get better, chaps. Thus spake the bard. Go Hawks, and keeping the faith over here." John Davison.
There you go, Hawks, John. At least Barry the Commander, at least he experienced a loss as well down in that Indian burial ground known as the desert down there. So
They got the win.
The Commanders did?
Yeah, they beat the Cardinals.
Never mind. They just felt like they both lost that game, just from the little bit that I saw. So,
yeah, because they barely won.
Yeah.
It feels like a loss against the Cardinals. So, yes, Barry, even though with the win, he should feel disappointed.
Yes, on the inside.
For the Pick'em League, Can You Digs It with 12 points, getting the win for week 1 in the Pick'em.
Hey, that's impressive, man. I was hoping that maybe you'd go down the line here through the slate real quick and I give you my retroactive picks.
You want to get those in, huh?
Yeah, but then we're going to try the live stream again on Thursday. And if we do that, then I'll make my picks ahead of time like a real person. But I'm very honest about this.
I was at least going to get your Thursday pick for this game with Minnesota and Philadelphia facing off on Thursday.
Where is it?
It is at Philly.
Oh, yeah, it's Philly.
And Minnesota just lost to Tampa.
Yeah, I know.
And the Baker.
They're going to be an up and down team in close games. That's what they are. That's who they were last year. They just happened to win all those close games.
Prime time Kirk Cousins against those Eagles.
Right. That's true. Forgot about that part.
It feels like an Eagles win.
Yes, it does.
So with the consensus is there. Okay, you want to go back to garbage time picks.
Yeah. This will be fast. Just go boop, 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 boop.
Okay.
Yep.
Arizona at Washington. Carolina at Atlanta. Cincy at Cleveland.
I'd have taken Cincy.
Okay, good. Houston at Baltimore.
I'd have taken Baltimore.
Jacksonville, Indy.
Jacksonville. Although that didn't feel good there for a minute.
No. San Fran Steelers.
Because it was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I would have taken the Steelers, I think.
Okay.
Just a spite pick. Yeah.
You got to have a spite pick in there. You can't be rooting for your division rival to win week 1. Tampa, Minnesota.
I'd have taken Minnie.
I'm feeling good about your honesty so far. Tennessee, New Orleans. And that's in New Orleans.
I'd have taken Tennessee.
Green Bay, Chicago. In Chicago.
I would have taken Green Bay.
Rams, Seattle. We know that one. Vegas, Denver.
I'd have taken Denver.
That didn't work out so well.
No.
Your retroactive pick. No. You lost that one.
But I believe in the resurrection, man. I do. I'm rooting for him.
Miami Chargers in LA.
I'd have taken the Chargers.
Philly at New England.
I'd have taken Philly.
Dallas at New York.
I'd have taken Dallas.
And the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets.
I'd have taken Bills all day.
Even with Aaron Rodgers and not knowing what was going to happen.
Yeah, even if Aaron Rodgers had played the whole game, they obviously still would have won. But it didn't change things for me. I do think that Buffalo team's awfully good, despite some of the turmoil from the offseason. But didn't play out that way week 1.
Everybody's kind of down on them a little bit this year. Yeah, more ways than just it being Aaron Rodgers' injury game.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Also got an email from Lauren Campbell over there in Edinburgh, Scotland, at Zero Charlie on Twitter. Says, I'm not a journo, sports writer, or player of football, merely a fan. But when the public display of DK Metcalf being temperamentally unsuitable to dealing with adversity is the catalyst for the 12s to find the latest 10% off sale at Target, a more appealing option than watching their beloved team. There is a problem, and it feels more profound than just a bad day at the office. McVay's smile and self-congratulatory, ungentlemanly fist pumps, having owned Metcalf's sensitivity, underlined that the Rams were wounded from last season's outing of being decidedly below average and would do whatever it takes to win. Geno Smith confirmed the Rams' mindset in the postgame presser. His diagnosis of the devastating defeat summed it up in 4 words: they wanted it more. An astonishing statement that worryingly suggests that our beloved Seahawks wanted it less? I doubt that was the case. These guys are professional athletes who are all about winning. In this case, the expectation of winning is what did it for them. The pundits, the fans, and the betting fraternity overwhelmingly had the Seahawks winning this match as the expectation. The problem is that the expectation is a results business, and that is based on the past, and history should have told us that the expectancy was too high because we all know that McVay has bested Pete Carroll and the scheme with sufficient frequency to tell us that the expectancy should be that the likelihood of a loss is high. Confidence is more potent than expectation when it comes to winning. High expectations, when not met, undermine confidence. The Seahawks did not look confident. The play calling was predictable, lacking arrogance and boldness. By weird tradition, we expected third downs to go badly. They did so because the execution lacked assuredness. Attempting to brush this loss off by throwing out the trite mitigations such as "it's only week 1" is not good enough. You are not serious people, to quote Logan Roy, who is how that nonsense feels. It absolutely matters today and will do so in week 16 when the playoffs are a thing that other teams are in. Tell the truth. Monday will be an uncomfortable affair for this team. My message to the team is simply this. You are 53 of the best athletes in the world, chosen from a cast of thousands for greatness. Forget about the expectations that others have for you and those that you have for yourself, because as you fail to meet them, you will eradicate any confidence that you have as a team or in yourself. Back yourself in every situation. Be arrogant, be violent in execution, and don't waste time evaluating mistakes in the game. 10-second memory and move on immediately. You are the 2023 Seahawks, not 2013 or any other year for that matter. Find your identity and leverage that. And finally, DK. Your astonishing end zone grab means little if you can't avoid damaging the team because the bad man was rude to you. Grow up and do better.
Yeah, but Lord, out a lot of that, man. Yeah, DK needs a giant help and do better there in the case of his histrionics and all that. But yeah, you did put the guy in the blender on the touchdown, and he's still a elite receiver in this league, and we're going to need him. Managing expectations is hard. It's one of the reasons why I always expect the worst, and then that way the bar is always down here, and then anything's a win. And I was one of those people that looking at this week 1 matchup, I was like, I like it. I was saying it for months. People told me I was crazy, and here we are.
Yeah, well, your expectations were met, as it turns out.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Even though you didn't want to buy into them, I think in that week leading up to the game, maybe we all got to you a little bit in thinking that our Seahawks would get the better of McVay. Man, I hate that guy.
Started drinking the JSN Kool-Aid, man. Like that's really what it was. Is just we're gonna be so much better on third down because of JSN. He's always open. You can't cover him, and we just didn't see much of that. So
I don't think we saw any third down JSN conversions, did we?
We saw a lot of Puka Nacua ones.
Yeah, talk about frustrating.
GR double go roast. Yeah.
Between Puka Nacua, who is a mid-round receiver taken after JSN, and also having to watch Tutu Atwell, who was taken after our guy D. Eskridge. Those guys going for 100 yards plus with nobody going 100 yards plus, with Geno barely going 100 yards plus. It was very frustrating.
I don't care who you have out there running routes. If you're an NFL caliber receiver at all, you're going to get open when the quarterback sits there and can just pat the ball, take his time, and have all day. Like, the NFL quarterbacks will eat you alive.
Big old lane right in front of you with nobody in your face.
Mm-hmm. They will eat you alive.
That brings me to my do better this week. My do better is for all of the quarterbacks who signed big contracts this offseason, Adam. It was a wild thing that happened in week 1 of the regular season. Every single quarterback who signed for big money in this offseason, every one of them had a bad day, or at least a relatively bad day. You had Geno Smith, 3-year, $75 million contract in the offseason, lost, throws 16 of 26 for 112 yards. Daniel Jones, 4-year, $160 million contract, loses, goes 15 for 28 for 104 yards, and they got blown out. Aaron Rodgers, injured on the 4th play after signing a 3-year, $112 million contract. Joe Burrow, 5 years, $275 million, goes 14 of 31 for 82 yards in the loss against the Browns. Justin Herbert, maybe the best statistical day of the bunch, with his 5-year, $262 million contract, goes 23 for 33 for 228 yards, the most yards by a quarterback who got paid this offseason, 228 yards. But you did have 2 of those quarterbacks get the win, although they weren't the players that were maybe responsible for the win necessarily, because Lamar Jackson and his 5-year, $260 million contract threw 0 touchdowns, was 17 of 22, relatively efficient, only 169 yards on the day. They got the win. Jalen Hurts also got the win with his 5-year, $255 million contract, only 170 yards, 22 of 33 passing, also 0 touchdowns. So for all the quarterbacks taking the money in the offseason and then going up in week 1 and throwing up some relative stinkers, do better.
Hey, man, I watch a lot of very poor quarterback play over week 1 of the NFL season, man. The bad quarterback bowl of Ritter versus Young, like that was almost unwatchable. Both those young quarterbacks are bad. Watching Tannehill and Carr go at it, man, like that was brutal to watch. You mentioned Joey B and some of the others, and they're just, I mean, Daniel Jones was a dumpster fire, an absolute dumpster fire. It was a bad week for quarterback play.
Yeah, it actually made that matchup between Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins look like one of the elite quarterback matchups of the day.
Yeah. Josh Allen with his 4 turnovers. It was a rough go.
Yeah, and it's just not what you expect when those are the guys that get paid in the offseason. You have expectations, and that's why I couldn't just put Geno like all by himself in the do better category this week. I had to lump him in with all those guys because just to show that it's not just a Geno problem, it's all of his peers' problem.
Sure. And honestly, that entire game against the Rams didn't feel like a Geno problem. That's not what it felt like.
No, but he will take the blame because of the lack of execution in the second half for sure.
And you're the quarterback. You're the captain. You take all the blame. That's what you do.
Who you got for do better?
My do better this week is for a certain subsect of fan 12s that drive me a little crazy. And man, after last year and Pete Carroll doing what he did, I thought that maybe we had gotten past this whole like Pete's a dinosaur. He can't do it. He's terrible, blah, 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 blah. But not that I saw a lot, but I did see a number of people being like, this is why we got to get rid of Pete. Got to fire him. You know, after one freaking week. After one freaking week. It was a bad loss.
Week, and you're calling for Coach Carroll's job. Like you couldn't just wait to see a few games of the season. No, it has to be after 1 week, 1 loss to a team that Pete, a coach that he's had his relative number. So yeah, maybe you get frustrated after so many years losing to Sean McVay. But I know what you're. I felt it too. I was like, really? Week 1,
it's unbelievable.
1 weekend. Like, okay, the guy Clint Hurt, maybe I can understand because it's been a couple of years and we're not seeing the performance from the defense. Like, I could understand going after the coordinator. Why not start with the coordinator?
Yeah, no kidding, man. Like that would be where my ire rests at this point. But yeah, just after 1 week after Pete has churned out winning season after winning season after winning season, brought the only trophy to the Seattle that we've ever had, went out last year and proved everybody took all that bullshit that everybody was spinning about what this team was going to be and shoved it straight up their ass. And then they has one bad performance in week 1 and it's time to get rid of Pete. All of you knee-jerk people, you need to do better. Like, these people have to be tough to be in relationships with. Like, the first time that girlfriend doesn't like remember to put the toilet seat up, do you like just get rid of her?
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
Yeah. What would the appropriate punishment be? Yeah, I guess you just get rid of her. You're out.
Just get rid of her. Yeah.
Screwed up.
Screwed up.
I feel like Pete Carroll going out and winning and going to the playoffs with Geno Smith in one season, it should buy him more than 1 week of grace.
You think?
At least a couple.
And you're never as bad as your worst or as good as your best, right? Like, the reality is somewhere in between. It's hard to watch maybe some of your worst right out the gate and confirm some fears that maybe you had going into it. I get that, but they're not going to be this bad week in, week out going forward. It's not going to happen.
I think that was part of it, though, too. It's because going into this game, we talked about some of our biggest fears with the team and whether it was the defensive line, which it didn't show up in the run game necessarily, but it did show up in their ability to rush the passer. Our concerns about the secondary and whether or not, a guy like Kobe would be able to hold up, whether or not, how the linebackers would look. And then with injuries and the tackles, I think it was just because all of our worst fears from the offseason got exposed right away in week 1 that it led to some of that reaction.
That, and then the injuries for the tackles. One of the interesting criticisms that I heard come out of this week was, he didn't play these guys enough in the preseason. And so that's the problem. That's why they're all getting hurt. It's like, dude, you can't say that. You can't know that. You can't predict that. So, okay, if he had played, these guys like, say, Abe all through the preseason, and then we got to week 1 and his old knee was an issue and he couldn't go week 1, what would you be saying? You're saying, should rest these guys. You got to protect them.
Yeah, if Charles Cross would have sprained his toe in the preseason rather than in week 1, you've got to move your feet in practice during the week. So, yeah, I don't think it's week 1.
It just seemed a little knee jerk. I get it. I mean, we're passionate. We're fans, fanatics. Like, that's what we're called. And so I do get it to a degree, but man, just cool your jets just a tiny bit.
Well, my better at life for this week, it helped me to be a more passionate fan. And my better at life this week, it's probably going to come across as an advertisement because I wore my Apple AirPods to the game, and it was really handy because I've worn them at concerts. I've worn them now at the game where you just put them in and you don't have to be listening to anything, but it dampens out the noise just enough. Like I felt like I paced myself better through the game, being able to not have the constant noise in my own ears, then to be able to produce my own noise throughout the game. And plus, one of the things I was baffled by, when you're at a game and it's loud, it takes all you can sometimes to hear your neighbor and to talk throughout the game. I was able to have my AirPods in and hear my mom talking to me at like almost a normal volume. I had to speak up a little bit talking back, but it was kind of incredible to me that it worked as well in the noisy environment of Lumen Field. And for that, Apple and your AirPods, better at life than Skip Bayless.
No, that's pretty cool, man. I've never really tried them. And it sounds like they do like the noise canceling thing. Is that what they do?
I've done it on airplanes and stuff before, but it's kind of a lower constant noise. And it was just, the other weird thing was when they had Modest Mouse come out and play at halftime, which I didn't even know was an Issaquah based band.
Oh, wow. I had no idea either. Okay.
Yeah. I found that out at the game. They wheeled out the stage, they played, and with the AirPods out, I couldn't even hardly make out that they were, other than the fact that there was a song going on, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you what song that they're playing. With them in, I could at least, it's like it somehow cancels out like the reverberation noise, and it made it so I could actually hear stuff better. It was really weird.
Well, shoot. I mean, this sounds like something I might need to buy because my hearing is absolute trash. And maybe that would help, because when I get in a room and talking to a few people and there's a bunch of background noise, it's over, dude. I'm basically reading lips. And just going off facial expressions and using a lot of listener noises,
Which is weird because so I'm similar to you, but if I have my headphones on, I can put it down at a pretty low volume and hear well. Like I'm not somebody who has to crank up volume to hear well, but like you're saying, in those noisy environments, it's hard to maybe it's just a frequency thing and this helps somehow.
Well, you would think I'd have a hard time hearing you over my babble, but somehow like that noise trash doesn't affect it. So I managed to get through it. And listeners do too. So that's amazing.
Somehow, every single week.
Well, my better at life than Skip Bayless this week, Brandon, is for Ricky Watters, former Seahawks running back. He came out, raised the 12 flag. That was awesome to see. He was one of my favorite players of that era. And he was not just a Seahawks running back. He played for a number of other teams throughout his career, but always loved the way that man played football. It was awesome to see him out there. The 12s gave him a raucous ovation. It was fun. I wish the outcome had been better for the man because nothing but respect for Ricky Watters and his career, what he was able to accomplish. Love that guy. Better at life than Skip Bayless.
Yeah, one of those guys that, man, I feel like he is just on the border of being a Hall of Famer because with what he did throughout his career, whether it was with the Eagles, I think he even won a chip down with the Niners and then came up to Seattle for the final years of his career. I think majority of his career ended up being in Seattle, and some fans of our age will remember him as being the guy that Sean Alexander ultimately took over for.
That's true.
But a lot of good years in those late 90s running the ball for our Seahawks.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed the hell out of his style of play, his slashing style. Spoiled me. And maybe that's why I wasn't the biggest Alexander fan when it all was said and
see,
done.
You were such a big Waters fan that you're like, screw this guy. I want my Ricky Waters.
I took his job. Like, screw this guy when it came to Sean. It just was like, okay, I mean, you're bigger Emmitt Smith. Congratulations.
Ricky was a more complete running back because he was, Holmgren always talked about, I think part of the reason why they never really threw it to Sean is that he just wasn't that great at catching the football. And Ricky was that guy who could catch the ball, run with the ball. And it was maybe a little bit more dynamic and making guys miss. So they both had their strengths. Obviously with Sean, it was just his ability to get in the end zone.
He was great in his career. It's kind of almost an ongoing joke on the show now that I make
understand. I like guys like Emmitt Smith and Sean Alexander, and you like guys like Ricky Watters and Barry Sanders. That's fine.
Yeah. You like guys that, produce behind prolific offensive lines instead of guys who are, producing just on their own.
Well, we can at least both agree Kenneth Walker is the man of our hearts now as our Seattle Seahawks running back.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. And I expect K9 to come out and have a good day this next week against the Lions, and we're going to need him, man. I'm looking forward to week 2. I am. Despite what happened week 1, Brandon, I'm fired up. I can't wait to watch this team again. I think they're going to turn a page. I think it's going to get better.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.